Hello and welcome to the Big Life NYC podcast. I'm Roderick Angle. On this podcast, I speak with longtime New York City residents to get their tips on how to have a great life in one of the toughest cities in the world. Today, I'm very honored to welcome to the show Anthony Haden-Guest. Welcome.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Great. Thank you so much. So Anthony is a writer, a reporter, a critic, a cartoonist, and a poet. He's also a longtime New York City resident. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again, yes.
Yeah. So your biography is really long, really varied. I'm going to try to go through it here and give people an idea of what you've accomplished in your life. So feel free to correct me if I get anything wrong. So as a journalist, you've written for multiple international magazines, including Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, The Paris Review, The Daily Telegraph, The Sunday Times, Esquire, GQ, The Observer, Radar, and Rolling Stone. You've written several books, including Bad Dreams, True Colors, The Real Life of the Art World, The Last Party, Studio 54, Disco, and the Culture of the Night, which I just finished reading, and a book called Down the Programmed Rabbit Hole.
Stupid title.
It's about corporate. It's about corporate.
That was my first book. It was really about, I was still living in London. It was about how giant American corporations like Coca-Cola and Muzak, I met Colonel Sanders. We're basically decorating the world, you know.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And you first moved, when did you first move to New York?
76.
76, as a writer for The New Yorker?
No. I've done very little for The New Yorker.
Okay. So who were you first writing for when you moved to New York?
It was rather a New York store. I was living very happily in a bunch of studios on the King's Road, London.
Right.
A speculator comes in, chucks us all out, and I'm wandering around. I ran into Clay Felker, the editor of New York Magazine, for whom I'd done 2 or 3 pieces. He said, "Where are you? I've been looking for you." I said, "Well, Clay, I'm kind of sleeping around." And he said, he gave me a ticket and a contract. That's why I'm here.
Right. So New York Magazine. That was my mistake.
Correct.
That's what I meant, New York Magazine. And then you're also a cartoonist. Your cartoons are wonderful.
Thank you.
I enjoy them very much. Your cartoons have been published in the New York Observer and White Hot Magazine. Seems like you're currently being published there. Your drawings have also been exhibited at the Spring Break Art Fair, the Aqua Art Fair at Art Basel, Miami. And you currently have drawings on display at the Ethan Cohn Gallery in Beacon and the Hahn Gallery on West 123rd Street.
Correct.
Wow, I'm getting it right.
Yeah.
My notes are correct. Good.
Yes.
You have several books of cartoons that you've published. And I have one right here that I wanted to show. This is the most recent one. This is called Fun Times, Further Chronicles of Now.
Yes.
Your first book of cartoons was called The Chronicles of Now, and then there's another one called, you have a lot of very long book titles, I've noticed.
Yes.
Called In the Meantime, The Other Ends of the World, Cartoons, and the Dark Light Verse.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Cool. So, also, by your own admission, you're drawn to really extreme situations. You told me that the other day. In 1985, correct me if I get this wrong, in 1985, you were kidnapped in Lebanon by a right-wing Christian extremist group. And that's because you were there working on a book about the drug trade in Lebanon. That's what I heard. But then I also heard this whole episode referred to as happening under very murky circumstances.
Not that murky, actually, pretty transparent. No, I went over there with a former hash dealer who it turned out had swindled a lot of them over there, and they thought I was his partner.
Okay.
So it was murky in that way, but they discovered I wasn't his partner, and so it all worked out well.
So you kind of got kidnapped along with this guy, and then...
And then I managed to get him out of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they realized you weren't who they thought you were.
There actually was a writer, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Clearly,
they
I was
released
rather
you.
ignorant about the drug business. Yes.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. We work with Brown Harris Stevens and many other top real estate firms, staging their homes to sell quickly and at the highest price possible. Our staging is affordable without sacrificing quality or design. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
So you're also consistently referred to as a socialite and a bon vivant. I'm not really sure what either of those two terms mean. So I think I want to start the interview right there. You're referred to as a socialite, but it really seems to me that you're just a very social person. What's your take on that?
I think that normally when the word socialite normally means, both in the UK and here, it means someone who likes hanging around with the kind of people who went to the same schools as they did.
Right.
I'm definitely not that kind of socialite.
Right.
I like hanging out with very different groups of people. Yeah, I'm pretty social. I get a lot of energy from dealing with different people. But I don't want to be hanging out with the same crowd all the time.
Right. Right. It seems like you like a really varied, mixed crowd.
Yeah.
Right. How often do you go out at night?
I would say nowadays I would stay in, I would say, about twice a week to work.
You stay in twice a week?
Once or twice, yeah.
So that means you're going out 5 nights a week?
Yeah.
How old are you currently?
I think, let me count, 87.
87.
Yeah.
And over the course of your life, what do you think's the average number of nights you go out?
I've always I just like connecting with people.
Yeah.
And it's always been, well, I've got a lot of material as well. It's the way I live.
Yeah. And do you think that
It's partly hereditary. My mother was like that too.
yeah, you mentioned.
No.
Yeah. So it's in your blood. So where did the socialite come from? Is that because your father was a baron, or is that why they use the term socialite?
No, it's I don't know. The word the
throw
word
around.
is inappropriate.
Socialist, that would be also inappropriate.
Well, I don't. In this country, people think socialists and communists are the same. You know, and
Right.
in Europe, we know very differently. Socialists and communists are constantly at war.
Right.
But I'm not either.
So I also read that you're a 3-time winner of Spy Magazine's Iron Man Nightlife Decathlon. So what did you have to do to win that award?
A lot of very public misbehavior, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During
It's not purposeful. It's people catching it in photographs, you know.
right.
It's spying. But it's okay. What the hell?
Yeah. So what decades? What era was that?
That was the years of Spy magazine.
So the 80s, right?
Yeah,
The late
yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
Right.
The golden years of Spy.
Right. So that's a lot of free drinks, maybe a lot of drink tickets, a lot of.
Well, just a lot of hanging out, having a good time, and etc.
Yeah.
Everything goes with that.
Also, I saw that. I guess there's a rumor that Tom Wolfe based his character in Bonfire of the Vanities on you. Is that true?
Well, I'll tell that, so I'll make it a brief one.
Sure.
I was very friendly with Tom. A chap called Christopher Hitchens, who I didn't know very well. In fact, kept on bugging me to introduce me to him to the two of them. And I did. We had dinner at the Lanes. And it was an ambush. Hitchens wrote a piece, pretty savaging Tom. And Tom was correctly furious with me.
Right. And this was before he wrote Bonfire of the Vanities?
Yeah, but when it was originally published in Rolling Stone, I think it was, the character was much more like me. In the end, I don't think it's like me at all, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the origin. Tom and I had a complete reconciliation, and but that's the way that happened.
So it sounds like there's some truth to the rumor. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to talk about a lot of the scenes on a lot of the eras that happened in the last party, because that's an era of New York that I missed. Right, that was before my time.
Yeah.
The Studio 54, even Danceteria.
Yeah.
I missed. And I just finished the book, and I found it was really fascinating. And one of the things that you really talk about the cultural origins of that era a lot, and you kind of seem to point to the disco era in New York City as being as culturally significant as the hippie era that came out of Haight-Ashbury. Do you think that that's true?
I think so, absolutely, for various reasons. I remember passing the site of Studio 54, and I was just thinking, this is what made New York an international city.
Yeah.
And also, when I came here, New York was still the city of districts.
Right.
Brooklyn was floating in outer space somewhere, and there were really major cultural and tribal differences between the Upper East Side, the Lower East Side, etc. Everything is now completely homogenized, which I think is very good.
Right.
And all that began with, again, to get back to Tom Wolfe for a moment, the whole culture, I'm sure this wasn't just New York, but people were intensely curious about each other in a way they'd not been before.
Right.
That's what Tom's new journalism was all about. And that's the thing about Studio. Steve Rubell's genius at Studio was the door policy, which is basically, don't just have upper-class toffs, don't just have Eurotrash, have some frat boys, have this, that, and the other,
Right.
And it was that wonderful mix that made the whole thing go.
I heard it referred to in the book as a salad.
Exactly.
How to make a good salad.
And there was a kid called Mark Bennick at the door who was in charge of all of that.
Yeah.
And that's what made everything so vibrant.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems to me quintessentially New York. That mix of cultures certainly has been sustained in New York for decades.
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
different ways,
Yeah.
And I'm hoping still now,
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, back to the door policy, and particularly celebrity culture, because you do talk about celebrity culture and the importance of it a lot in the book, but it seems like it's that mix, the mix of regular people and celebrities together in the same.
And people didn't bother celebrities, Elizabeth Taylor or Michael Jackson would walk in and people say, hey, but it was not. And I remember David Bowie, a man I greatly admired, he said in an interview something, but he said, somebody asked him why he lived in New York, and he said, because one of the reasons he gave is people don't bother well-knowns in the street.
Right.
It was typical of Bowie, who'd use the word well-knowns, not celebrities. It's true.
It's an interesting word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think New Yorkers have always prided themselves on not being fazed by a famous person riding the bike, riding a bicycle down the street.
You've noticed it. Hey, isn't that funny? But you don't chase
run after them.
Exactly.
Trying to get an autograph.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you think that was, that kind of birth of, did that celebrity culture get birthed at Studio 54?
I don't know. In a way, that whole and some of the negatives came out there too. The kind of Andy being photographed with Bianca Jagger and all of that.
Why was that negative?
That incentive was the only evidence of art in the original Studio 54. Art only came in later with Palladium.
Right.
I don't know. It's just New York.
It seemed like that maybe there was an element of people conspiring to make themselves celebrities at Studio 54. That maybe there were some people that weren't really, or maybe they were their career was waning. They used the publicity that came from being out as a way to revive their careers.
The only ones I can think of were the ones who really did not have, but there was this Disco Sally was an older woman, and other people. There were people who became famous at Studio 54. I cannot offhand think of anybody who was famous before and felt their fame was waning.
Right.
So they went to jump-start it again at Studio. I don't remember that at all.
And then what about the role of the paparazzi? Because that seems certainly like the photographers were an important element. Was that the first time that really happened?
No. There were always paparazzi. There was always those were the days when there was a popular press. There were the days when there was a press.
Yeah.
There were paparazzi in Europe. The word is Italian,
Right.
And that was a general worldwide phenomenon, but it was very strong in New York. Yeah.
I think there's a picture in the book of Ron Galella wearing the football helmet because Marlon Brando attacked him.
Yeah. Well, that dates it already, doesn't it? Marlon, was...
Yeah. It definitely seems like Steve Rubell was very conscious that he needed celebrities and he needed the paparazzi there to document them, to make the club successful.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But you also talk about Malcolm McLaren going to the Bronx to see Africa Bambaataa.
I interviewed him a long, long time ago, before punk, immediately before punk.
Right.
Because I was writing a piece about how T-shirts were becoming a language.
Okay.
In the old days, if you wore a Coca-Cola T-shirt, it meant you worked for the Coca-Cola company.
Right.
And Malcolm's one of the people who changed that. And punk happened shortly after that. And I remember, and he and Vivian Westwood started a place just up the King's Road, just up from the place I lived in, which is the one I mentioned.
The Sex Boutique,
And I pop in there to say hi, and I see a T-shirt. It's a famous T-shirt. A lot of rock stars with a lot of names on it. And I saw my name on it, underneath the heading saying "People not to wake up next to." And I said, "Hey, Malcolm, what's this?" He said, "Well, you're an old hippie, aren't you?"
Right.
And so that was a cultural difference, wasn't it? No, but I liked Malcolm a lot, and I remember vividly when I saw him at an art fair selling art. I said, "Malcolm, what are you doing here?" He said, "Rock and roll is dead."
Right. Well, so in the book, there's this scene where he goes to the Bronx to see Africa Bambaataa perform, and then immediately...
okay, I'll tell you that little
story.
And
immediately books Africa Bambaataa to open for Bow Wow Wow at the Roxy.
I'll tell you exactly that story.
Yeah.
I was hanging out Lower East Side with my few friends, including Richard Neville, who's the Australian, the editor of Oz magazine in London.
Yeah.
Malcolm comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going off to South Bronx. Come and see me. I'm going to listen to some new kind of music called scratch."
Right.
And we say, "Okay, catch up with you later, Malk." Don't make it, of course. And that's where he signed Africa Bambaataa.
Incredible. And then had him open for Bow Wow Wow.
And Michael Holman has described exactly. He was there, and he described exactly what happened.
In the
Bronx. When Malcolm arrives, and
I mean, it seems to be
that was the birth of hip hop.
Well, it was the introduction of hip hop to Manhattan culture and the world. And then there's a story about then they take these hip hop guys on tour to Europe and Japan and kind of publicize it.
If you catch Michael Holman on YouTube, he describes he was actually there.
Wow, incredible! It's a great story.
Yeah.
So all the clubs you talk about, Studio and Danceteria and Mud Club, and seemed like they were these venues where, like you said, subcultures could mix together, right? Because you said New York used to be very segmented into districts, and the cultures would mix together in the nightclubs. Where do you think that's happening these days?
Well, it isn't, is it?
There
are
the other answer.
In New York, there are two excellent clubs, but they are known to people who go there. They're not gossiped about worldwide. the hangouts are gone. And they died in a very brief period of time. And I don't just mean places like Studio, I mean places like Mortimer's, places like Gino's, places where people would go because they knew other people.
Yeah.
That's all gone. That whole culture has disappeared.
You don't know of any place now that kind of has a,
I know
echo
some
of
very
that?
pleasant places where I'll probably bump into some people I know. But I cannot think of any places that are magnets the way they were.
And what about the importance of gay culture? It seemed like that was really the genesis of that whole disco era. Do you think that like a specific gay culture has as much influence on our nightlife and our culture in the city these days?
I'm just actually now writing a piece about what's wonderful, over-the-top, ultra-gay performer called Machine Dazzle.
Okay.
Hugely successful, who also makes excellent art. But this is a real phenomenon these days. Back in the days of the clubs, there was a lot of very visible, over-the-top gay culture going on, and I guess being enjoyed by all,
Yeah.
club kids and all of that. There's now, now gay is totally accepted, but it's not such a public theatrical thing anymore that I can see.
No, I agree. But I just feel like that energy had to go someplace, that kind of exuberant, like where did that spirit go,
I hope it's gone into their work.
Right.
That's what cultures are about. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your current favorite spots to go out these days?
I don't want to.
You don't want to spoil it?
They're quite small places,
Oh,
so
okay.
no. I'm not sure if they would welcome the attention, frank, to be honest.
Okay. Well, you'll tell me in private afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I want to know.
Yeah, I'm glad to tell you all, but I don't think I want the whole world pouring in. Yes.
Yeah. How does somebody find a great place to go out? What are the things you look for?
Well, I think it's word of mouth more than social media.
Yeah.
And I don't know, kids coming to the city for the first time. I was not young when I came to New York, so I didn't go through that whole School of Visual Arts thing and all that kind of stuff. You know, I had to reach out and find my own people. I think it's just Manhattan's little. Manhattan's the smallest big city in the world.
Yeah, yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody who's moving here for the first time and wants to find a social life?
Just find like-minded people. Find my places. And if you're in a particular business, you will meet young people in that business. And there's a kind of automatic human reaching out,
Yeah. So do you think you're ever going to slow down?
Will I?
Yeah, will you ever slow down?
Yeah, sure, wheel will fall off one of these days. Yes, yeah. Inevitably. I'm not sure if I want to be around in 30 years anyway, frankly, the way things are looking.
Well, I hope you and I get to go out a couple times before you slow down, before the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much for being here. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Okay.